Hey, okay. So it is a Friday, and today has is yet another day trying to get things to work out. I know a lot of you are probably out there working with your VRC, VR&E program. So that's going to be for those of you not familiar with it, Veteran Readiness and Employment, formerly vocational rehabilitation and employment through the Department of Veterans Affairs federally. Today, we're going to talk about some of the leading questions that people in our group have been asking or posing over the past week. And actually, in the past day, because I've seen this a few times. So, wanted to tackle the issue. Hopefully, if you're running into this type of problem where your vocational rehabilitation counselor is elusive or acting more like a snipe than a professional that's getting paid a lot of money to help you. We're going to talk about that. We're going to get to the bottom of it and try to give you some insight into what to do. I am real quick refreshing the video here to make sure that you can hear me. So if you do happen to be seeing this and you're wanting to touch base, feel free to do so. But anyway, so what we're going to talk about today is how to get a hold of your voc rehab counselor to talk about why reasons that they may be tardy or late to the scene in responding to you, and to give you some, again, reasonable feedback on how to get in touch with these folks. There are a lot of ways to do it. There's no one way to skin the cat, so to speak, but there are factors to keep in mind so that when you are running into challenges, that you're at least thinking about this in the right mindset, or having the right frame of mind when you are addressing the counselor. Because if you're like me and like any other veteran, sometimes if you think that their failure to get back to you has really anything to do with you, odds are it doesn't. That's been my experience in life, whether it has to do with being married, or whether it has to do with children, or with people that you work with, or anything else. It always seems like 80 to 90% of what you're dealing with has to do with practically anything else other than you. It's just that you happen to catch somebody on a bad day or whatever. So, having said that, we're going to walk through some of the primary questions in the Q&A here to talk about what is going on. So what we're going to run through are about 7 different generalized topics. One is going to deal with the initial contact, how to do it. The next is direct communication and what that means, how to do it. The next is going to be understanding timelines, because a lot of veterans don't know what's reasonable and what isn't. So that's obviously important, and we want to get to the bottom of that. Next is VR&E regulations and rights. And so what we're looking for there is whether or not there's any particular regulation or some other kind of law that mandates how a VRC is supposed to reach you. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about leveraging coworkers in relation to a vocational rehabilitation counselor. So we'll talk about that. Proactive strategies is going to be next. Talk about that. And then general considerations. So I hope that this helps. Again, our goal here is to help veterans walk through this process with as little or bypassing some of the speed bumps that traditionally hurt veterans or would get in our kind of our pathway, and some general strategies on how to get around it. So having said that, we're going to jump into it here. So for the first question is getting at the initial contact. And so how can I establish a consistent communication with my vocational rehabilitation counselor, VRC for short? They also maybe sometimes going by the name of veteran readiness counselor, but I don't feel like, at least I'm a little biased, but I think that when VRE changed the name to from vocational rehabilitation and employment to veteran readiness and employment, I feel like they made the purpose and objectives of the program a little more obscure. So Hopefully, we'll get to the bottom of that a little bit too as we talk. But just know that when I'm talking about vocational rehabilitation counselor, if you happen to hear them referred to as veteran readiness counselor, it's really the same type of person. So, how do I establish consistent communication with my counselor? And then, what are common reasons for a VRC not responding promptly? So, again, not responding promptly. What is going on in the background that's not about you that may be resulting in the VRC not getting a hold of you in time? So, anyway, uh, establish consistent communication. It's been my experience that usually email is the best method. Now, having said that, VR&E is using and implementing a new case management software called EVA for short. I don't know what it actually stands for, but it's EVA. So in theory, when you send an email, it should be going into your EVA database. Now, just because that's happening does not mean that your counselor is getting it, and it does not mean that it's going into your file. So I want you to be aware of that. I'm not completely clear how the EVA system works and where these communications are going. Uh, so we'll see. It's a system that's been implemented for about, I want to say, 2 years, 18 months, something like that. Some counselors or some veterans don't mind it. Others, complain about it. But that's usually what it is. So when you send an email, basically you're sending an email into this EVA program. The EVA program is then taking your correspondence and putting it into a case management software platform that then your VRC is supposed to see and then respond to. So this is communication with the counselor has been a historic challenge and problem for veterans. And so VRE has implemented the software in an attempt to help track and also to probably assess timing of responses. The system is imperfect, and veterans still report that they don't hear back from their counselors anyway. So I wouldn't say that EVA is a silver bullet of any kind. Now, what are some? Again, email probably the best. I would not rely on calling. I would not rely on being able to set up face-to-face appointments. Now, getting into the next thing, what are the common reasons for a VRC not responding promptly? So one of the reasons is usually that they have a caseload that's just too high. So they're basically working with too many veterans. They don't have an ability to address some of what's going on in a timely way. So it's hey Andrew, thanks for the message there. I see that you put in a response. I'll get to that in a bit. So if you happen to watch this and you're in Facebook, you can or YouTube, you can send in an email or a note underneath the video. If I see it while I'm doing this, then I'll respond. So there you go. And anything I respond to here, typical disclaimer for an attorney. What I talk about here should be and is for educational purposes only. This is not to give legal advice. None of you on this call are clients of mine, or at least I don't think so, as far as I can tell. And we are here just to have a conversation about VR&E. If you happen to want specific feedback about an issue, especially if you're denied or something like that, you can feel free to reach out to my firm, benjaminkrauselaw.com. And if it's a situation where it's something we can give you feedback on, and just send you a quick email or whatever, we'll do our best to try to get back to you. So feel free to do that. We provide free case evaluations to veterans who are denied benefits. So feel free to reach out if you happen to have been denied benefits. And again, it's got to be something we can really help with. Sometimes veterans are denied for things that don't make sense. So if that's the case, I'm a little limited on the information I get. So anyway, so there's that. But so going back to reasons for VRC not responding promptly, usually it's because they have more than 125 veterans that are in their case workflow. They're not supposed to have more than that. That's been a kind of a hard rule since gosh, what was that? It would have been before. It would have been Secretary Shinseki who stepped down. I think it was in 2014, a long time ago. Anyway, before he stepped down, he implemented the 125 client rule for VRCs. However, many offices are still understaffed, and therefore many of their VRCs end up working with more clients than they can reasonably manage. And it results in the veterans not getting the attention or services that they truly need. It's unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the beast right now. VR&E has historically spent a lot of money on computer fixes and not necessarily on increasing staffing as much, at least in my opinion, as much as they should. But that's, neither here nor there at this point. So having said that, let's see here. Looks like there's a little bit of a delay with how the video is showing up. Well, that's just life, I guess. So it is what it is. Anyway, so point is, usually the VRC is overworked. Sometimes they don't know the answer and forget. Sometimes they just miss it. So what I usually do in that instance is, if that's the case and I don't get somebody to get back to me within a reasonable amount of time, what I will usually do is send an additional email, and I'll do that every couple days until I get a response. If I don't get a response within maybe 1 to 2 weeks, or 1 week if it's an emergency, then it may warrant trying to find out who the individual supervisors are, or a coworker or a caseworker, to try to reach out to them to see if they can reach out and help. Hey, Andrew, I see your message. Yeah, these types of cases, I'll talk about yours at the end. That type of case is, right now, self-employment is just really hard for veterans to get approved. It's not impossible, but it's hard. Unless the veteran is extremely disabled to where self-employment is the only reasonable outcome. VR&E is going to, they may support it, but it's going to be frequently limited in what the agency is willing to provide. So just to be aware, self-employment, they're not going to do much. I know frequently they'll tell veterans that they'll get you some business cards, and in exchange for you spending 40 to 80 hours working on a self-employment plan, they will give you a $12 box of business cards or something, So the outcome, the squeeze may not be worth the juice, in some instances. So don't want you to get your hopes up and, spend a ton of time chasing after self-employment when you're going to end up spending so much time trying to get the counselor to approve it that at the end of the day, you'd have been better off working at Hardee's and spending the time there, and then using that money to go buy the equipment that you need, rather than chasing around VA for self-employment support. It's been my experience in most instances, not all, but most. So having said that, let's see here, direct communication. What is there a helpline for VR&E? Okay, so a couple things here that are new came into my attention. It's something I'm going to be talking about here pretty soon down the road. So when it comes to the direct contacts, there's two methods here to go about it. You could go to the White House hotline, file a complaint. Those complaints then get routed to the Office of Field Operations. The Office of Field Operations has jurisdiction over what the VRCs are doing in the field. The VR&E service program in central office does not. So if you have a complaint where you want it to go to a higher up in VA quickly, you could do the White House hotline. I know that that's where it goes. This is what I've been told. In the alternative, if you want to go the route of having a elected official help you, like your congressman or woman or senator, what happens there is, hey, Patricia, I'll get to your question here in a second. What they do there, within the context of VR&E, is when they send in the complaint then will go to the regional office first. So just it's a different, slightly different thing. So jurisdictionally, it'll go to the regional office. The regional office will get a bite at the apple, uh, and then you kind of take it from that point. So two different approaches. One goes right to the head within VR&E, but I don't think, or I'm sorry, within the Office of Field Operations. But I'm not clear, and that does get reported in some manner to the secretary. So that information is definitely tracked. I think that it depends. If I were doing it, like there's one thing I'm going to be working on soon where we're going to be submitting complaints a certain way, and we're going to use it as a test to see how that system works. The complaints are totally valid, and I just want to see what happens if we submit a number of complaints the same way, see if there's a similar type of outcome. So we'll see about that. But anyway, point is, if you think that you are in an area where a regional office approach may be better, uh, then maybe that's not a bad idea. If you think that the attention you're getting is so adverse where you think it really needs to be pulled out of the entire regional office, maybe you don't like, you have reason to believe that the vocational rehabilitation and, or I'm sorry, the VR&E officer, so veteran readiness and employment officer, if you believe that person is maybe um, part of the cause of the issue, you may want to go up and outside of the regional office. So the White House hotline is the way to go. If you think that the person maybe is just a bad counselor, or the counselor is too busy, or there's some other kind of thing going on where you'll get a fair shake at the regional office, if it just goes to somebody at the regional office, it's over the top of them, then I would go that approach, right? So that would be going through your representative or your senator in your particular area. So those are two different approaches there on direct communication. A third is the veteran readiness hotline. And so I want to point out that, let's see here. So I do have the number in my phone. I do a lot of VR&E cases, and so I do have it somewhere. Now I can't find it. That's great. Here it is. So it is 202-461-9600. Now, and again, the number is 202-461-9600. That is the center call line for veteran readiness and employment services. Okay, so the services that's basically a hey Joe. Let's see, I'm just kind of looking at who do I contact? Not paid. My VR counselors. Oh, okay. So Joe, for that one, I would send it. If you're not getting paid, that's a central office problem. Usually, it could also be that your counselor just didn't process it in time, and that's why you're getting screwed. If you find out exactly what the source of the delay is, whether it's central office and there's a problem with processing generally, or if it's just your VRC locally, that may inform which party that you contact. So, food for thought. If it's central office, I would go White House. If it is just a problem with your VRC locally, then submitting a complaint through your elected official locally may not be a bad idea. And again, hopefully it'll get resolved equally, fairly quickly, whatever that means, regardless of which way you go. But that doesn't always happen. So it could be is what it is. So going to Patricia Grady, my counselors told me he couldn't write me a letter. So okay, he sent information on okay. Okay, so Patricia, I guess this one seems pretty involved. So if you got a denial, we're happy to do a quick case eval for you. I would just go to maybe the law firm and do that. It's a little kind of specific on a specific appeal issue where it looks like you got a decision. So feel free to hit us up that way. And then if it's something we can give you feedback on that's quick and easy, then we'll just send you an email with a response. And if it needs more work, I've seen this kind of thing quite a bit where they refuse to extend and the refusal to extend is erroneous or, in error. Um, and so that is a situation where, the fight to get that sorted out may be more difficult to address in kind of anyway. So reach out. Hope to help you out, Patricia. Anyway, Joe, counselor not respond. Okay, so we talked about that, and then yes, you told me to go ask for a letter. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. So sorry. I wish that they would have helped you out more, Patricia. So anyway, so going back to what we're talking about, the three options are, to recap on direct communication if the counselor is not responsive, is White House hotline first, and that is a central office move. Second, contacting your legislator, which would be senator or congressman or woman, then that person could intervene for you, but that goes to your regional office. It doesn't go to central office. So, as I understand it, there's a little bit of a nuance and some difference. So, in some instances, it might get resolved more quickly. In other instances, it might get covered up. So, just it depends. Third would be to call the number that I provided. I believe it was 202 491 9600. Is that what I said it was? Yes. 202 461 9600. That goes right to VRE service. They may or may not help you because they don't have jurisdiction over the field, but they might point you in a direction. And it's possible behind the scenes they may send an email on your behalf, not representing you, but, just kind of to the VRC that's kind of doing the offensive behavior or out of touch, and then help you out that way. Now, understanding timelines is next. And so how far in advance should I plan, let's see, for, communications? Usually communications is going to be, I don't know, 2 to 4 days in a response. Sometimes some counselors are very responsive, but even then it may take a day. So it just kind of depends. And then also on understanding timelines, here's one about, hey, Mark, here's one on, I'll get to that question in a second, Mark. So then there's another question on understanding timelines. So 2 days to a week is probably a reasonable amount of time to get a response. If it's longer than that, then that's unreasonable at that point. And you'll want to start sending them emails every day or every other day until they respond to you. And if they don't, then you reach out to the VR&E officer. The officer, you could find out their name on the regional office leadership website. So if you're like St. Paul Regional Office, you would type that into Google, select leadership in the menu, and then you will get the name of the VR&E officer if there is one located at that location. And then, but usually the email is first name, period, last name at va.gov. That's not always how it works, but it is frequently that's the email. So you could try that, and then of course calling the other numbers that I'm talking about. Now, one of the questions here relates to how far in advance you should apply, hoping to use VR&E, because of all these things that we're talking about, delays in communication and all that stuff. So it's been my experience that you should definitely apply for VR&E benefits before you start school. Now, that doesn't mean that you're out of luck if you do start school and then you apply. Maybe you didn't hear about VR&E before, which is usually the problem, and you've decided that you want to, use it. Well, in that instance, you could apply, and then potentially you'll get retroactive induction depending on the circumstance and the nature of, there's a lot of different things. So you can get retroactive induction, and it may cover your tuition, books, fees, and also provide subsistence payments. The beauty of using VR&E as opposed to like GI Bill in that kind of situation is that VR&E will preserve your GI Bill, so you could use your GI Bill later on like anything you want. And so what I usually encourage veterans to do is to burn through as much of their VR&E benefits as they can get approved for, up and through, completion of a degree. So such as medical doctor, Juris Doctor. So Juris Doctor is for attorneys, medical doctors for physicians, counselor, stuff like that. And when you're done, if you preserve your GI Bill, you could potentially then use it. Like for me, if I had GI Bill benefits remaining, which I don't, but if I did, I would consider doing like maybe like a Master in Public Policy or an MPA like Harvard or something to manage a nonprofit, or what else would be get an LLM maybe. There's a bunch of different topics that I think are interesting now that I've been an attorney for a bit, that I didn't really know about before. Now I know. I've a lot more salt and pepper, uh, more salt than pepper, I guess, in my beard. So I'm a little, just different perspective. It, I would probably use it to maybe get an EMBA or an MPA or something like that, and you know, that's what I would do maybe if I had additional training left in a GI Bill. So the beauty of that, of course, is VRE covers your big ticket item, which is law school, medical school, and then later you get the additional credential that may help you with employment down the road or something, or just to help you with general knowledge. So a lot of different options. Anyway, so going back to when to apply for further education from VRE, I would say the good window is about 6 months. If you know that you're gonna want to use VR&E, and especially if you think that you may have a tough case, like let's say you already have a bachelor's degree, or you're working and you have a bachelor's degree. These are things that don't preclude. I've helped people who are working that already have a master's degree and are going for a PhD. So just having a degree in itself doesn't mean that you are precluded. It's just very frequently I see counselors who will see that a veteran has a degree, and they just won't be thoughtful about the evaluation process, and will kind of blow off, what the veteran is hoping to accomplish. So, that's kind of one of those things. So you don't really know until you know. And in order to know, you need to apply well in advance before the start of school. So the last thing you really want to deal with is a VRE appeal and fighting against them while you're in the middle of training, especially if you're in your first year of law school or first year of medical school, which is incredibly stressful. You don't want to be caught in that kind of position. So that's my 2 cents, as far as when to apply. But now on VR&E rights and regulations, and this is related to when VRCs must respond, like, is there a regulation about that? I would say not exactly. There are certain regulations and statutes that address appropriate conduct of federal employees. Now, that is true and that exists, but it's not going to specifically drill down into exactly when a VRC should respond to you. Now, there are the iCare standards and other types of things. There's also for VRCs, if they are accredited by a third party, they are required to abide by those ethics rules, which can include communication requirements for their clients. And you are, as a veteran, a client of a VRC. And so if you are the VRC and you're like, I don't feel like it, well, they may run into some problems if they or their supervisors are certified. Now, I can tell you many VRCs are certified by the CRCC, which is a ethics and credentialing body that exists in Illinois, outside of Schaumburg. I believe it's Schaumburg. Anyway, somewhere in Illinois. And they regulate how a VRC, a rehab counselor, really is what they're called, how a rehabilitation counselor can interact with a client. It's not just many agencies and many organizations and private companies use rehabilitation counselors. So it's not just VA. And the CRCC has ethics requirements, and you can read through their manual. It was just updated recently. It's pretty useful. And you can find out, what a VRC is supposed to do and not do. So it'll help. It'll help. So that's about the closest thing that I've found as far as like a quote regulation. It's not really a regulation. It's their ethics requirements. and that can help. So food for thought. That's kind of my 2 cents there. As far as so that's rights and regulations on communications. You know, leveraging caseworkers. Now this goes back to what I had mentioned before about contacting other people who work with the VRC. In the example I provided, it was to contact the VRE officer. That's the boss or the division chief of that office. That's who you can contact. So, excuse me. So that's who you can contact. Food for thought. And then, hey Jeff. And so, oh, it's a good day today. There seems to be a bunch of folks turning out here with some questions. This is good. I like that. It keeps me on my toes. So, anyway, so that's the caseworkers. You could go into the regional office, although during the last, situation, I'm not going to say it here because it might result in the video being downgraded. But the last thing that occurred from 2020 to 2022, a lot of regional offices closed. It was very hard to get a hold of a counselor in person, and also very hard to get a hold of your VSO. Hey, Randy, good to see you. And I wish I had water. Now I'm kind of like, oh, I'm getting a lot of questions, and my voice is starting to rattle. So, excuse me. Um. So anyway, where was I going with that? Oh yeah, leveraging caseworkers. So you can go in person. If nothing else, you can try to reach out to the regional office customer service team. They may have somebody there who can reach out. Also, I mean, I know a lot of VSOs, veteran service officers, don't know a ton about VR&E other than they know it exists and they, kind more or less know what it does, but they don't necessarily know what the problems are the veterans go through and how to address it. They're usually better at disability comp issues than they are at VR&E issues, but nonetheless, go in and talk to a VSO and try to get some help. They're there for free. If nothing else, they're a sounding board. You can go ask, and they may not know what to do, but if they do, they can maybe get up from their desk and walk over to the VRC's office and try to find out what's going on for you without having to go through the formalities of an appeal and any of the other stuff. So that could be, that's always one option. I'm all about, the quick and easy kind of guerrilla bureaucracy moves than going through the formalities of the appeals modernization system. Just sometimes it's quicker. It doesn't always work, but it sometimes does. So then proactive strategies. So how can I effectively track and manage my communications with VR&E? And then the next one is, what organizational tips can assist me in navigating process more smoothly? Okay, so first realize that VR&E is a massive organization and it's just a small part of VA, which is huge. And you're just a number, a cog in a massive wheel. And they maybe have 15 minutes to spend as counselors on your case. So they may not get to it. So don't take it personal, unless, of course, it is personal, and that could happen. And so let's see here. Hey, Luke, I see your question. Just so I usually don't do PMs if it's general like that. If your question is, just how do I become a lawyer? There's information on my website that's free, disabledveterans.org. We're adding to it. So just take a look at that. I mean, a lot of it is, when it comes to getting a particular goal, it tends to be common sense. And not everyone's going to get approved for the training. And then, if that's the case, what a lot of people do who aren't veterans, and just they have to take out student loans. So if you're not able to get approved, you may need to consider taking out student loans like everybody else and going through that process if in fact you really want to be a lawyer, but VR&E won't approve you. Just something to think about. I know for me, I ended up going to law school because VR&E offered to pay for it. I don't know if I would have ultimately done that if they didn't offer, or at least I should say agree to pay. There wasn't really an offer. I had to fight for it a little bit, but If I had to pay out of pocket, would I've gone to law school? I'm not sure. I'm glad it happened, but but I don't know if I would have done it otherwise. So, having said that, tracking and managing communications, there are free systems on. God, I wonder how it would work for this. So, if you were to go to appsumo.com, there are frequently kind of uh, B tier, so second tier software systems that are kind of new, where they're trying to kind of work the bugs out or whatever, that deal with like case management and communication management systems. You could go there and buy one like $50 to get a lifetime like license to it. And some of those do track communications. And so you could go get your own, CMS, and maybe you end up using it for lots of things, manage like family management, that wouldn't be a bad idea. But anyway, going to AppSumo, checking it out, and then using that to track your comms, kind of like customer management or something like that. In the alternative, I mean, sometimes the best way to do it is just using like very simple tools that are already in your email, like Gmail or like Outlook, where you can literally have the emails automatically go into a side like folder, and then that's where they are, and they're there until you delete them. So that's one option. Another could be Excel, plus that, but I think, Gmail, if you're using Gmail anyway, for that type of communication, like communications with government officials, Gmail's pretty good. For that, because the government already knows, what you're talking about. So, who cares? As far as I'm concerned. So, let's see. Jeff asks, I'm looking at a program out of state, and they have a vet success on campus that is also a VR&E counselor. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's a good question. Out of state attendance, when you're living in state A, the schools in state B, what do you do? So, I can tell you about my personal experience. So I lived in Minnesota, and I wanted to go to Northwestern, and I was attending a small private college in northern Minnesota at the time, that I learned about Northwestern University outside of Chicago. And I wanted to go because one of my professors' daughters went, and I'm like, well, why is your daughter going there? And it was an economics professor, and the econ professor said to the whole class, he's like, well, it's the best school for microeconomics in the whole country, and that's why she's going there. I was like, well, I want to go there. So I did. I applied and got in. But the Chicago regional office did not want to approve me. They wanted me to go to a tier 4 school. And at the time, Northwestern, I think, was rated 10th in the nation for undergrad. So I just, hell or high water, I was going to complete my undergrad at Northwestern. I figured at that point. So I ended up complaining about it, and the school that the regional office, St. Paul regional office, that was sending my file down to Chicago, decided to approve me after I'd moved, based on the different circumstances at the time. So great for me. I mean, the degree at the time was over 40,000, and that was 15 years ago. So now it's probably 50 or 60 grand. So I was really fortunate, and that was an out of state example and how we got it worked out. So I sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't. Some counselors will approve you for out of state stuff. Others will not. It depends on the regional office. Usually they try to approach it as if the federal regional office at the other location somehow has jurisdiction they can't address, and therefore you have to move, even though they're a federal program. I personally think that's garbage, and it actually makes it really hard for veterans in some instances. And it's a barrier that VR&E could just do away with, because, I mean, it's a federal program, so who cares? I don't, from our perspective, I feel like it puts a burden onto the veteran that we shouldn't have to deal with and don't need. So anyway, that's my 2 cents there about that. Randy had a question. VRC was confused, it sounds like, between what it means to be 100% permanent and total, regular scheduler, and then what it means to be IU. Currently, I have an IU claim that has been deferred. Will I be denied if I? Okay. So, Randy, to that question, I have seen very frequently veterans end up having problems with VR&E if they are found to be IU. So individually or individual unemployability, I think is what it basically means, the acronym. And in that instance, you may have to fight a little bit harder to show that despite your disabilities, through vocational training, you will be able to gain and maintain suitable employment, and that that type of training should be feasible for you. Uh, so that's not, it happens. Some veterans have to jump through a lot of hoops to get sorted out. And if you're one of those veterans, that's a bummer, but it does happen. So I've seen it. I've seen a lot of these. For those of you on here that don't know me, I used VR&E to cover my undergrad. They also paid for my law degree, and they helped pay for my law firm in part. Some of the costs associated with computers and systems, and so I was very fortunate. God blessed me in that way. And put me in this position. And ever since then, I've been helping fight for veterans who want to become America's future leaders as doctors, lawyers, business executives, counselors, and the like. And that's what I've been dedicating my law practice to. I also help veterans in other ways with other rights issues, but my big focus at the moment, anyway, is veteran readiness and employment. I help veterans and have helped veterans get approved for lots of things, including doctor of audiology, dentist, uh, pharmacologist, like you name it. So, or pharmacist, doctor, lawyer, lots of different things, professors. So it's what I do. I'm really, blessed to have this opportunity to give back to the community and to help these veterans out when they're having issues. So anyway, if you happen to have questions, I left my information in the corner. So my hope is that people can kind of reach out. There's a lot of free resources and news resources about veterans on disabledveterans.org. That's my blog that I started back in 12 years ago, I think, or 13, I don't know, anyway, a while ago. And then my law firm that we started almost 10 years ago, coming up next month. So it'll be my 10-year mark. So we've been doing this for quite a while. I function as a attorney most of my time, and then journalist is what I also do. So I like to dig into what's going on at the VA, write about it. It's something I enjoy, and it helps me with my stuff. I think we all have our individual like kind of hobbies and ideas and whatever that kind of keep us motivated and keep us on track. And for me, writing has been one of those tools. So anyway, having said all that, I hope you guys have a great uh, weekend. I don't see any other questions. Let's see here. Nope, I don't see any questions that I can find. And it appears that, yeah. So anyway, until next time, I hope you guys have a great weekend and really look forward to doing these. The Friday thing seems to work well for me, and I enjoy the opportunity to help and serve in this way. So have a great weekend. God bless, and until next time, keep your head up. Take care. Oh wait, is there one more question? Nope. Oh, how do I reach you? Patricia, just go to the law firm and put in a contact request. That's the easiest way, and then of course I can keep track of those. So that's the best way to reach me. Until next time, take care. Bye for now.